The light in the hallway flickered twice before going out completely. Archibald Archie Cooper, 80 years old, and recovering from a minor stroke, sat silently on the edge of a thin mattress in what used to be the downstairs storage room, now apparently his new bedroom. There was no proper bed, just an old pull-out sofa with a sagging middle, a dusty floor lamp that barely worked, and 4 cinder-block walls that made the air feel damp, no matter the season. One single light bulb hung naked from the ceiling. No window, no clock, just silence. Archie looked down at his socks, mismatched, and rubbed the faint numbness still lingering in his left hand. Not pain exactly, just a reminder. A reminder that once your body falters, people start treating you like a ghost they haven't buried yet. It hadn't always been like this. After his wife Marlene passed 5 years ago, Archie sold their smaller house and moved in with his son Jason and daughter-in-law Cara. It had seemed like the right thing, a shared home, 3 generations under one roof, laughter echoing through the halls. At first they gave him the guest room on the main floor. The grandkids would curl up next to him with bedtime books. Cara brought tea. Jason even bought a new TV for his room. But slowly, subtly, everything shifted. It began with whispers, Dad's leaving lights on again, then gentle corrections, let's not let Grandpa use the stove anymore. Then, the fall. It happened in the hallway, one evening. Archie's leg gave out, and he crumpled near the coat rack. Nothing broken, just shaken. His hand trembled for days afterward. And just like that, his identity changed. From grandpa to liability. Jason had said it kindly, of course. We just think the basement will be more manageable, he'd said, not meeting Archie's eyes. Fewer stairs, more privacy. But Archie had seen the truth. The guest room had become Cara's new home office. The bookshelves were gone, replaced with ring lights and motivational posters. His belongings had been boxed up and labeled, Dad, basement. No one asked if he wanted to go downstairs. They told him he'd be more comfortable there, as if being tucked away like winter coats was a kindness. That first night in the basement, Archie didn't cry. He didn't shout or beg, or throw a scene. He just sat there, blinking in the low light, listening to muffled laughter from upstairs. He glanced at his old keychain sitting on the folding table next to him. Still had the original key to the house. The one he'd helped pay for when Jason first bought it. Back when co-signing was a favor, not a slow eviction. He turned the key in his hand, the metal cool and worn smooth. They'd forgotten he still had it. A small thing, but powerful. Archie laid back on the sofa, pulled the scratchy blanket to his chest, and closed his eyes. He had time, and one final chapter left to write, not with anger, but with precision. The next morning came slowly. Archie woke to the sound of the furnace groaning through the vents and footsteps thumping above his head. The kind of footsteps that once belonged to his grandkids running to hug him, now just hurried echoes that never came downstairs. He pulled on a cardigan over his pajamas and shuffled toward the basement steps. At the top was a baby gate. Not for a baby, but for him. A folded note had been taped beside it. Breakfast is on the counter. Don't use the microwave. No good morning. No how are you feeling. Just a reminder, stay out of the way. Archie returned to the basement and made his way to the narrow window near the ceiling. The only sliver of the outside world he could still see. Through it, he could catch a slice of the backyard fence and the neighbor's tall oak tree. That's when he noticed him again. The boy, thin, maybe 17. Mowing lawns, always wearing oversized headphones and a faded army jacket. The kid had been mowing lawns on the street all summer, but this one, Jason's yard, was always done for free. Archie watched as the boy cut clean lines into the yard, then raked up the leaves near the fence, even fixing a loose panel. The boy glanced toward the house. For a second their eyes met through the small window. Archie gave a slow, almost invisible nod. The boy nodded back. Later that day, Archie sat outside for some air while the rest of the family was busy. It was the boy, Noah, who approached first. "You the one who built the old treehouse?" he asked. Archie smiled faintly. "That's me. Took me 3 summers and a whole lot of duct tape." "It's still up," Noah said, shifting his rake. "Even after that storm last fall. That treehouse has better bones than most houses in this neighborhood." They both laughed quietly. Noah sat across from him on the edge of the porch. "I'm saving up to go to trade school," he said. "HVAC, maybe plumbing." Archie raised an eyebrow. "Real work, respectable. People look down on it though, especially the ones who think college degrees are everything." Archie tilted his head. "People confuse money with character." They sat for another moment in companionable silence. Then Noah added, "You don't belong in that basement." Archie looked at him. "Noticed that, did you?" Noah didn't say more, but he didn't have to. That night, Archie sat at his small folding table under a dim bulb and opened a locked drawer in his suitcase. Inside was a sealed envelope with a name on it. Mark Bennett, attorney at law, old friend, estate planner, quiet man with a sharper mind than most. Archie opened a fresh envelope and began to write. There were still papers to change, but more importantly, a future to shape. And maybe, just maybe, someone more deserving to leave it to. The air was cooler that Saturday morning, the kind that hinted at autumn's slow arrival. Jason was away on a wellness retreat with Kara, leaving Archie home alone with the kids upstairs and a pre-frozen lasagna labeled, "Just heat if hungry," in the fridge. No one had thought to ask if Archie needed anything. Good, because he needed silence and a little freedom. By 9 a.m. Archie had called a cab, the same old service he used before the stroke, and made his quiet escape. No fanfare, no questions. He rode with his favorite driver, Greg, who'd known Archie since he was the school principal back in the day. "You're looking sharp this morning, Mr. Cooper," Greg said, glancing in the rear view. "Where to?" Archie smiled. "Downtown, Bennett Law Office." Greg raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. That was why Archie liked him. The office smelled like pine and paper. Mark Bennett hadn't aged a day, still in his signature dark blazer and thick glasses that always slid down his nose. "Thought you'd come in sooner," Mark said, sliding over a warm cup of black coffee. Archie nodded. "I had to be sure." They sat for over an hour, going over documents, redlining old clauses, and drafting new ones. When it was done, Archie handed Mark a sealed envelope with careful handwriting, "To be opened upon my death, or at the attempted sale of the property." Mark looked at him with quiet curiosity. "You sure about this?" Archie didn't hesitate. "If I've got anything left in this world to give, I'd rather it go to someone who mows the lawn without being asked, than someone who moved me into a basement and called it care." Afterward, Archie walked 3 blocks to a small bakery and ordered his favorite apple fritter, the kind Marlene used to bake on Sundays. He sat on a park bench, sunlight breaking through the trees, and watched families pass by. Nobody noticed the older man with the slow gait and thoughtful eyes, but Archie wasn't looking for attention. He was looking for closure, and maybe redemption for what he'd let slide too long. Back home, Noah was waiting by the porch, raking leaves. Archie handed him a warm paper bag. "Apple fritter, no nuts." Noah blinked. "For me, call it a down payment," Archie said with a faint grin. "For something I might ask of you one day." Noah took the bag gently, as if it carried more than pastry. He didn't ask what that something might be. But Archie knew. The boy had just accepted more than dessert. He'd accepted trust. A week later, the house was buzzing. Gera was hosting her father's 70th birthday party, and every inch of the main floor was decorated with gold streamers, floral centerpieces, and catered trays from an upscale deli. Dozens of guests milled about in the living room, sipping champagne and laughing over piano jazz from a Bluetooth speaker. Archie sat in the basement, still in his slacks and pressed shirt, still waiting, no invitation, no knock. He could hear the laughter above, faint and filtered through floorboards, the same way his presence had been filtered out of their lives. At one point, he mustered the strength to climb the stairs and peek through the baby gate. His old chair, the one with the soft armrest he'd used for years, was now by the fireplace. Some guest he didn't recognize was sitting in it, laughing too loudly. A small knot formed in his chest. Then came the worst of it. He heard Jason's voice. "And yeah, we had to move Dad downstairs." His memories going. "You know, poor guy barely knows what day it is anymore." Laughter. Light. Careless. Archie's hands curled around the wooden rail of the stairs. He didn't say a word. Didn't push the gate open. Just turned around and quietly descended back into the dimness. The next morning, Noah was waiting with coffee in a travel mug and a silent nod. He had heard about the party from his mom, who worked for the same caterers. "No one even mentioned you," he said, leaning on the rake. "They just called it Kara's event." Archie chuckled dryly. "I suppose I'm not part of the upstairs world anymore." "You should be." Archie looked at him, eyes calm but sharp. "Let me ask you something, Noah. If you had a key to a house, but everyone inside forgot you owned it, what would you do?" Noah took a long pause. "I'd change the locks." Archie smiled, not out of bitterness, but quiet approval. "That's a good answer, son." Later that afternoon, Archie pulled out his file folder, the one with all the final documents Mark had drawn up. He double-checked the conditions, the trust clauses, the trigger events, all of it ironclad. And then, with deliberate care, he reached under the lining of his old suitcase and pulled out a smaller, separate envelope. This one was addressed by hand. "Noah, for the day they forget who I am." He sealed it again and tucked it into his dresser drawer, behind a stack of old flannel shirts, because the day was coming. And when it did, the real owner of this house wouldn't be the one upstairs sipping wine. It would be the one who never stopped knocking. Sunday mornings used to mean cinnamon rolls, newspaper pages scattered across the dining table, and the sound of Marlene humming old hymns in the kitchen. That was before time hollowed the house out, and before Archie became an afterthought. Now Sunday mornings were silent. Jason and Kara were off at their brunch club, and the grandkids were glued to their devices upstairs. No one had spoken a word to Archie since Friday night. The tray of frozen meals in the basement fridge stood untouched, their labels like little insults pretending to be care. So Archie made tea, the old-fashioned way. Kettle, loose leaves, patience. As he sipped, he reached for the worn notebook on his lap. Inside, he'd been jotting things down, not memories, but instructions, steps, contacts, letters to be mailed only when the time came. Every great act of revenge, he believed, wasn't about anger. It was about timing. Around midday, he stepped outside for sun. Noah was out front, fixing the small broken bench that had splintered in the last storm. He was sanding the edges, taking his time, not because anyone asked, just because he cared. "Could have left that bench alone," Archie said, walking up with slow steps. "I like fixing things," Noah replied. "They don't talk back, just need time." "People used to be like that," Archie said, half smiling. "Now they just scroll." Archie handed Noah a folded envelope. Noah looked down at the handwriting. "You sure?" "I am," Archie said. Noah tucked it into his jacket pocket. Inside was a signed letter of trust. When the time came, and it was coming, that letter would place Noah as the sole beneficiary of the property, with conditional instructions and witness verification from Mark Bennett. Not for money, but for meaning. Because Archie hadn't just seen kindness in Noah, he'd seen character. That evening, Archie overheard Jason talking on the phone. "I've been thinking," Jason said casually. "Maybe it's time we appraised the property. The market's hot, could be worth more than we thought." There it was, the slip, the plan. He wanted to sell. Archie sat in the basement, looking up at the ceiling, where muffled footsteps passed like clouds over his silent storm. They were planning their future, and had no idea that his pen had already rewritten it. Not for revenge, for justice. It was late Thursday morning when the white SUV pulled into the driveway. Archie watched through the narrow basement window as a man in khakis and a navy blazer stepped out, clipboard in hand. He took pictures of the siding, jotted notes about the roofing, and began measuring the lot from end to end. An appraiser. So Jason wasn't bluffing after all. Archie sat calmly on his pull-out couch waiting. Moments later there were hurried footsteps down the basement stairs. Jason appeared, all charm and artificial smiles. "Hey Dad, just wanted to give you a heads up. We're, having someone take a look at the property. Just seeing what our options are, you know?" Archie asked, voice low. Jason cleared his throat. "Well, you know, it's all in the family." Archie tilted his head slightly. "Is it?" Jason didn't answer. He just forced a grin and disappeared back upstairs, calling over his shoulder. "Shouldn't take long." Archie waited until evening to make his next move. He slipped on his jacket, tucked an envelope into the inside pocket, and walked slowly across town, not to Mark's law office, but to the county clerk's building. It was quiet, as it often was late in the day. He stepped up to the records counter and handed the clerk the sealed packet Mark had prepared months ago. "Transfer of title," Archie said softly. The woman raised an eyebrow. "Effective immediately." Archie nodded. "Effective now." She stamped it, scanned the barcode and handed him a receipt with a calm finality. As Archie turned to leave, the clerk asked, "You sure about the recipient?" Archie looked at the name on the deed. Noah Reed. He gave a faint smile. Some kids earn it without asking. Back at home, the house buzzed with excitement. Kara had opened a bottle of wine. Jason was giddy over the appraiser's valuation, well over $700,000 thanks to the expanding neighborhood. They hadn't spoken a word to Archie, didn't ask where he'd gone, didn't notice the key still looped around his finger as he passed the hallway unnoticed. Upstairs they were celebrating. Downstairs the real owner was preparing for their silence to be permanent. In his room, Archie sat at the folding table and clicked on his old desk lamp. He pulled out his notebook and drew one final line beneath a list of completed tasks. The basement may have been dark, but the view from here, crystal clear. By the next Monday, Jason was moving fast. He'd already spoken with 2 realtors, gathered paint swatches for light home staging, and casually mentioned in a group text that big changes were coming. The living room had been rearranged. The family photos with Archie in them, quietly taken down. The basement door remained closed. Archie didn't say a word. He simply watched and waited. Wednesday morning brought the inevitable knock at the door. A couple, young, sharp, and clearly moneyed, stepped inside with a realtor trailing behind them. Jason puffed up his chest and gave them the grand tour, boasting about the neighborhood, the new plumbing which he hadn't paid for, and the extra storage suite in the basement. That last part stung, but Archie kept quiet as they stepped into the basement to peek around. He stood calmly in the center of the room as the couple paused. They looked startled. "Oh, someone lives down here." Jason stammered. "That's my dad. He's temporary." Archie smiled at the couple. "Don't mind me. I just own the place." Silence. The couple looked confused. The realtor looked annoyed. Jason cleared his throat. "Dad's joking." Archie didn't break eye contact. "No, I'm not." By that evening, Jason was fuming. He stormed into the basement with a printed email in his hand. "You undermined everything," he hissed. The buyers backed out, said something about legal title confusion. "What did you do?" Archie didn't rise from his chair. He just looked up slowly. "I followed the law." Jason's face flushed red. "This is my house. You signed it over years ago." "I co-signed," Archie corrected. "And I never relinquished my share. You assumed I wouldn't act on it." Jason's voice dropped. "You had no right." "I had every right." Archie cut in, eyes firm. You wanted to sell the roof over my head without telling me. You moved me into a basement like an old coat. You treated my silence as permission. He stood slowly, letting his cane tap the floor with each step. I was quiet, Jason, not absent. And now, you answer to the new title holder. Jason blinked. What does that mean? Archie handed him an envelope. Inside, a copy of the new deed. Recipient, Noah Reed. Jason looked like the floor had vanished beneath him. Who the hell is Noah? Archie gave a small smile. Someone who still knocks before entering. That's more than you've done in months. Upstairs, the house had fallen silent again, but this time it wasn't from neglect. It was from consequence. And Archie, he didn't feel like a forgotten man anymore. He felt like a mirror. Jason had been avoiding, and now, he was all out of places to hide. Autumn deepened in the weeks that followed. The leaves on the backyard maple turned a brilliant orange, falling gently onto the bench Noah had repaired. The air had that crisp wood smoke edge, and for the first time in years the house felt still, but not in a forgotten way. In a respectful way. Jason and Kara moved out 2 weeks after the title transfer finalized. They didn't slam doors. They didn't apologize. They just packed what they could and left, without ceremony, the same way they had tried to erase Archie's presence. Noah helped them carry boxes to the car, then helped Archie up the steps, not just from the basement, but back into the heart of the home. The first night back upstairs, Archie sat in his old recliner near the fireplace, a wool blanket over his knees. Noah seated across from him sipping tea. The TV played softly in the background, some black and white detective flick he hadn't seen in years. Noah glanced around. You want to change anything? Archie shook his head. No, this house remembers me the way I was before they buried me in silence. That's enough. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some judged Archie. Some praised him. But no one could deny the truth. He hadn't lashed out. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't thrown anyone out. He simply used the most powerful thing an old man still possessed, his signature. A week later, Archie received a letter from the city. His property had been nominated for a local preservation grant, thanks to a neighbor's referral and Noah's submission of photos of the restored bench, the treehouse, the flower beds. There were plans now to turn the house into a part-time community workshop for trade students, with Archie as mentor and Noah as manager. That evening, Archie placed a small wooden box on the kitchen counter. Inside it was a single house key, old brass, smooth from decades of use. He looked at Noah and said softly, I won't be around forever. Sooner or later, this place will need younger hands. Noah didn't take it. He looked Archie in the eyes and said, not until you're done with it. Archie chuckled, closing the box. Then you better be patient. Outside, the porch light flicked on as dusk settled. The wind carried the faint scent of leaves and distant wood smoke. Archie stood at the threshold of the home that had once been a prison, now returned to being a sanctuary. And as he turned the key in the front door, the same key he'd kept on his chain through all the silence, he smiled, because this time, he was walking into a home where he mattered.